What's up, podcast listeners? Welcome back to another episode of Shoecast brought to you by Shoeware. My name is Chase, and I'm here with Landon. And today we have a special guest. His name is Kixar Customs, or Paul Limpa. He's an award-winning artist that went from painting on canvas to painting on sneakers. How's it going?
Great. How are you?
Hey, we're doing good, doing good. We're so happy that you decided to come on here and talk with us a little bit. We appreciate it for sure. Yeah, we got Paul here, like Chase said, and so our first question for you, we're just gonna bounce some questions off you, just kind of get a little more information about what you do. So our first question is, how did you get started? Just with what you do.
Okay. Well, I think I was always into art and was an artist. I'm 49 years old, so I can remember when I was a kid. There was no ESPN and things like that. So sports, there was sports on TV, and then I used to get Sports Illustrated, and I remember I used to draw covers almost every week that they would come in. I would just try to replicate what was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So there wasn't like today you can easily, if I'm going to do a painting of somebody or a sneaker, you can easily go to Google and find millions of images of anybody. Um, but back then it was like if there was a new athlete that was taking the country by storm, you might only hear about it if you picked up Sports Illustrated, or I think there might have been another one that was out, but so it was few and far between. But I was always drawn to the great photography. um, I think Walter Yost was one of the biggest photographers for Sports Illustrated, and so I was drawn to that and to athletes, and that's how I really first started, was just drawn as a kid.
Oh, okay. Well, that's actually pretty interesting because you are older. We've interviewed a few other people, and they're kind of younger, so that is definitely an interesting perspective in regards to how you kind of got started. But
Yeah, sorry.
no, you can go. You can continue.
No, I was just gonna say, as far as my age, I get that a lot because most of the stuff that I do is through Instagram, and so Instagram definitely skews younger, especially sneakerheads and people who are following my art. I would say that when I started this, as far as putting art on Instagram specifically, I did it for a year with maybe 800 followers, and maybe 20 to 30 likes when I put something up. Even if it was, one of my best pieces, you didn't get too much traction. But then as soon as I started painting on sneakers, that's when things started to kind of like snowball, and you get more likes and more followers, and that's it kind of went from there.
Right,
Well,
right.
definitely, yeah. Especially like you touched on, whenever you're uh, whenever you're working in the sneaker community, you figure out, just how popular that field is, for sure.
So Paul, I was just wondering, are you a shoe guy yourself, or do you just only do it for other people, or is it just because you were getting more views? Is that why?
Yeah, no, actually, I had been painting on canvas for about 16 years, and I don't think I was necessarily looking for a new avenue or a new thing to do. But I've always loved sneakers, so yeah, I had the first Jordan ones when they weren't Jordan ones. They
Oh,
were
okay.
just Air Jordans when they came out. I guess I was probably about 13 at the time, maybe. So I was the perfect age, to get into that. And obviously, I think they might have been like $65,
Wow.
or something like that. 60. And I remember my dad taking me to the store. I'm from Bayonne, New Jersey, and just going there and thinking that, this was the greatest thing ever. Before that, I think the greatest pair that I ever had was Dr. J's Converse, which were like white leather with the red stripe and
Right.
star. And
Yeah.
and and truthfully, when I had those, everybody was sweating those like they were the greatest thing ever. So when you look back at it, it was like that was like a time where sneakers really took a turn, and kind of started the skyrocketing that it enjoys today.
Oh, for sure, and that's something that actually me and Chase talk about a lot. Is just there's never been a better time to be in the in the shoe game because it's just taken such a massive like global turn. Just everyone across all nations are just falling in love with all the new types of shoes and stuff that are being mass produced right now. So it really is the golden age for shoes. I feel like, especially for sneakerheads.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just in my little part of the sneakerhead world. I mean, I've sent shoes to Brazil, to Germany, to the UK. So and I've been doing this for less than a year, but with the internet and sneakers have such a far reach that you can see how popular it is, all across the globe.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. So, do you? So, our next question is: do you do this full time?
No. My painting, my sports painting was always just on the nights and weekends, and I would say that it's become a little more difficult now because I didn't there wasn't much of a demand for my painting. So if it took me 2 months to 3 months to do one, it didn't matter. I just whenever I could, you know. And now because I kind of have to get certain things done within a time frame, it is a little more hectic, but yeah, I do it only on nights and weekends.
Okay, so what do you do while you're not either painting on canvas or on sneakers? What do you do in your I guess your actual job?
Yeah, I'm a creative director, so I'm a designer. I'm on the design side of creative direction. I work in the marketing department for TD Ameritrade. So I've been here for 10 years, and I've been in marketing or the creative realm for about 22 years professionally. So I think that actually helps me in this field a little bit too because I don't ever just go to you know like as far as process wise, I never just go to a shoe and start drawing on it. I use the computer and first research and make sure that anything that I'm coming up with, hopefully nobody's done before. And I try to make sure that they're unique and give it my own style, which I'm still kind of formulating because obviously I've been doing this for less than a year, so I think I'm getting there and I'm getting a style, but you know, it's a process.
Right. So, like playing off that, what do you do to draw inspiration before you customize a shoe? What do you think that process, kind of looks like before you really dive into a new shoe?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, a lot of the stuff that people ask for, I am familiar with. I love comics. I love comic book art. Cartoons, things like that. The things that people ask for are always really graphical. And I've had an affinity for. I think this started. I mean, Kixar comes from, just a play on Pixar and Kicks.
Right.
I put those
Okay.
two together, and the first shoes that I did, we were taking a trip to Disney, and I painted shoes for myself and my four kids, and so we each had different Pixar themes, excuse me, and that was a hit when we were at Disney. People were stopping us, taking pictures of our shoes. Even the characters were loving it. My daughter had Minnie and Mickey, and so that was great. But as far as the process is concerned, I definitely do a lot of research. If it's something that I haven't seen in a while, I might watch a couple of Batman movies. If it's Rugrats, things like that. I definitely my wife has a brother who was a '90s kid, and so he used to watch Rugrats. So I had a little bit of knowledge from that, and then I would just kind of go back and research. So again, everything is done with a lot of research, and I want to make sure that and am kind of true to either the characters or the shows. And I think that's why people kind of like it, and hopefully they look at my stuff and see that it's a little bit different than what I try to do is stay away from just painting the character on the side of the shoe. It's difficult enough to do something like that. I don't want to take it away from anybody that does because this is a tough thing to do. But I also want to make them unique and kind of break down the shoe and highlight parts of the shoe too, so it's not just painting over the shoe so you can't recognize it anymore. So
Right. And like one minor play off of that. So, I'm assuming that do they just kind of give you, a theme that they want and then just kind of let you go to work on it, or do they more send you what they want it to look like so you can replicate it?
Yeah. Well, I usually they'll say, like sometimes there's 50-50. Some people are the ones that are just like, I love your shoes, and like so the people like I just did a Superman one that has been has been pretty well received. That one came because the person saw my Batman ones and was like, I love how you did the Batman ones. Can you make Superman ones like that? And so that's what I did.
Oh, okay.
But and the Batman ones I just kind of came up with that way. And like I said, like my design is evolving. And the one thing I won't do is a lot of people will send you somebody else's stuff, like, hey, can you do this? And what I'm trying to do is stay away from doing the repeating graphics, like the LVs all over a shoe or the drips or those kind of things. Not because I don't like them, but I feel like there's so much of that out there. If I could work it in, like I did a little drip on my Winnie the Pooh shoes. That was the first time I did a drip. But people were, because a lot of people have asked for those type of things. Another thing about my process and actually the way I do this is everything is done with a paintbrush and paint and the shoe, and that's it.
Wow.
Sometimes a pencil. I don't use any kind of what do you call it? I don't use the stencils. I don't use an airbrush. Um, I think part of that is because it would make it a lot faster for me. I think to do these
Hmm.
and maybe I could do them for cheaper, but that's not really. I'm an artist, so I feel like doing that stuff is just trying to take shortcuts to make something faster, and that's not what I do it for. I get the enjoyment out of actually creating it. So you know that's why my process is that way.
Well, kind of bouncing off that, I kind of noticed that, because you're very particular in how you do your paintings and as well as your just, your normal um, designs and stuff. What what was or I'd say, what is the average amount of time that you usually take on a shoe? And then what was one that it was probably the longest that you've ever done?
Okay, I would say that I'm, it's difficult because I do nights and weekends. So sometimes I
Right.
can steal an hour or steal 2 hours during the week. So I try to kind of keep that. But if I have like a crunch, sometimes I can finish one in 2 full days, and that's like maybe 10 hours a day painting. Because I mean, I don't know if you look at most
Wow.
of my shoes have a lot of detail on them.
Yeah,
I
they're
don't
crazy.
yeah, I don't use it like the Superman ones have, two faces, the letters, the comics that are in the swooshes, all, I wish they would take, faster than they do because I think the other one would probably be, um, my SpongeBob ones, which were like the first ones that, like, I was like, wow, people like this. So I think they got like maybe 13,000 likes without being promoted or anything like that.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of intricate things in there, and I think those take me more than 2 days to do, just because it's a lot of detail, it's a lot of layering. I would say the ones that I went off the deep end are the Rick and Morty ones, and those are the ones where like there's like I think it's like 42 different characters on one shoe, and then like 6 or 8 on the other, and the portal. But the one shoe, I mean, I had this idea, and I was like, it felt like such a great idea to do it, but then truthfully, when people like it, but then when they ask how much it is, unfortunately, I would have to charge $500 or $600 for the
Right.
shoe because it takes a week to do it. I mean, I can't. I can't take a week to do something like that and then not charge for what I'm doing, which is kind of unfortunate because you know some people have a problem with pricing in this game because there's, like I said, sometimes if you do the LVs and a stencil and it takes the guy 3 or 4 hours to do, then it's okay to charge $100 on top of the price of the shoe
Hmm.
because, you're only working 3 or 4 hours. But if I'm going to sit there for a couple of days and come up with something completely unique that, you haven't seen out there, you know, for me to charge 200, 250 for my time. I don't think it's that much, but some people some people don't like it. You know.
Right, and I think that's a gray area in the sneaker industry because I mean I've personally been on the end of where I'll spend $200 or $300 on this shoe, and then there's other times where I'm just like, don't even want to spend $50 on a shoe. So you're just sitting there, it's really back and forth whenever you're looking at it from that perspective. But so
Yeah,
do
yeah.
you only do sneaker customs now, or do you still try and work in other canvas paintings and whatnot?
Right now, exclusively just doing shoes, and that's only because I have like I think like 12 or 13 shoes that I have to do, you know, this month, and that's probably even more than I like like it can handle right now.
Oh man.
Yeah, so and so it when I started, it was like, oh, it takes like a week or two, and then 2 to 3, and then 3 to 4. So I'm up to like 6 weeks now as a wait time, and so I mean, and that's great. I appreciate it. It's just trying to manage that. I don't really have time to do a canvas painting, especially when it's like not for anybody specifically.
Yeah,
Right.
the
Those are
times
more
have been
yeah
changing, right?
yeah.
So you know, since it's kind of taken off, let's kind of rewind a little bit and let's go back to your, I guess, your very first experience, or what were some of the struggles from moving, as a normal regular artist to Kicks?
All right. So the funniest thing that happened to me was my son. He he showed me these Bape vans, right? And so this is back in February of last year, and I was like, well, "That looks cool. Let me try. I mean, I can do that." And you know, I didn't really. I researched a little, but not as much as I should have. So I went out and I bought them leather vans. I did the prep work on them like I was supposed to. But what I didn't want to do was go and plunk down, $100 for paint. I'm like, I have paints. I have acrylic paints. What's the difference? And so I spent a couple of days painting them. They looked okay. I mean, when I look back at them now, I'm like, yeah, these aren't really that good. But um, anyway, so he put them on, and it was my daughter's birthday, and it wasn't 5 minutes, and they were like the paint was cracking and peeling and
Oh
falling
man.
all over me, and I was like, and I was embarrassed because now he's at a birthday party. He's got friends there. My daughter has friends there. And I'm like, keep your feet under the table. Don't let anybody see
Oh
because they're
man.
telling him, "Oh, my dad painted my shoes," and then the paint's all over the floor. So,
Right. Yeah. That
that was tough.
the parents are like,
Um,
"Is your dad an artist? Or, like, what's going on?"
yeah, yeah. So that was tough, but that was a lesson learned. And then my second pair I did for my daughter. I bought Angelus paints, and I've been using those ever since. And that's the way to go if you want to paint on sneakers. So
Yeah, that's what I've been kind of noticing is like Angelus is the premier paints that people use all over. So that's good to know for anyone listening.
yeah, yeah. That's one of those things where I went to Michael's and I saw that they had leather paint there, but I was just like, I don't know. Everybody is telling me to use these things, and I used the Angelus paints, and it worked perfectly. So I was like, if it ain't broke, I'm gonna keep doing that.
Nice.
So it
Very
works
cool.
great.
So, like, all right. So now we're going to talk about real quick throughout your career. What would you say your most memorable moment was? Either like whenever designing shoes or painting a picture. Like, what would you say your most proud or memorable moment would be from like all the designs that you've created?
So that's cool. I there's a lot of them.
It's got
Like
to be
little
tough.
ones
Yeah, it's got to
here
be
and there.
tough.
Yeah, but I would say that all right. So I guess this was like 3 years ago, and I had painted Andrew McCutcheon, and so I tweeted it, which I'm not for some reason Twitter and art, at least it never worked for me. Like I could tweet something and get like one like,
It's
or
totally different
yeah,
platforms. Twitter's just
yeah,
not near as much interaction on Twitter for sure.
yeah. There isn't. But anyway, so I tweeted it to him. I tagged him or did whatever it's called. And so then like maybe 15, 20 minutes later, my daughter walked my phone over to me, and she's like, "I think your phone's broken," and it was like, ding, 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 all these little, uh, notifications from Twitter.
Right.
He had retweeted it, and I had gotten like, you know, maybe 10,000 likes
Wow.
within like 3 minutes, and it was
Oh
just like
man.
a barrage of likes, which was kind of cool. It was one of
Hmm.
those like memorable things because I was like, wait, I did this of him. He saw it, he liked it, and he shared it to all his fans. So that
Yeah,
was kind of cool.
That is cool.
It wasn't, it was obviously it was online or it was a social kind of interaction, but it was still a pretty cool interaction.
and that's
That one, yeah.
what's that now?
I was gonna say that one, and then I used to paint on baseballs.
Right.
I think I have one on Instagram, but I did Don Mattingly, and I got to meet him, and
Wow.
he yeah, he was really cool about it. And he said he was nervous. He goes, I don't even want to sign this because I don't want to mess this up. So I thought
Wow.
that was pretty cool that he said that, and he really enjoyed the artwork. So like those little kind of interactions are cool. And then all of the people that I do work for, or even not the people that I do work for, there's thousands of people that take the time in their day to like tell you that they like the work that you do or are inspired by the work that you do. I think that means just as much too, because you spend a couple of days working on something, and you're like, I mean, luckily I have 4 kids and a super supportive wife, so I'm
Right.
always showing them stuff and like, hey, how's this? How's this? So I have a good span of years from 10-year-old to 18-year-old to kind of give me what's cool and what's not cool.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah.
And
So
also
so
like
I
to
leave.
and to like to
Yeah.
play off of that thing that you have for Twitter that just blew up. I mean, that's the one thing that in this day and age, it's one of the most powerful things is you can just be putting stuff out there every single day and getting one like, one retweet, no likes, no retweets, and then bang, one thing just clicks, and all of a sudden you just make that jump like you were talking about from 800 followers on Instagram to now you're rocking 18,000. Like it just takes one or two things to fall into place, and then all of a sudden you're just spiraling like that.
Yeah, it is. It does. It kind of happens. You know, it's not overnight, but it's pretty quick. Where I can remember there was for months I was like, how come I can't get any users? And then I had some people tell me, oh, you could pay for users, and or like pay a service. But then you hear that it's like, well, those are just bots. They're not real people.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
we've
and then
considered that before. Trust us.
yeah, yeah, and so I definitely I was like I'll stay away from that. The one thing that I do find successful on Instagram is promoting my stuff on Instagram, and for as little as $10, I could just promote one of my shoes to see how, and I get a lot of users, followers, excuse me, through that, and I've gotten a lot of business through that when you promote it because there's only so many people within your network that you can reach, and then when you kind of step out of that a little bit, but within the same kind of network of people, so people that follow, they look for people obviously that follow me and have the same kind of tendencies, online or in social, and then they'll promote it there, and so I have seen that I can get with the right shoe. It's not always every shoe. I think like my SpongeBob's and my Rugrats are probably the ones that have gotten me, a couple of thousand followers each, where some of the other ones might only get you 80 to 90 to 100. And so those are the ones that I'll promote, to just kind of throw them out there and hit a new audience, and then hopefully get more followers and maybe a business, some business or two.
Yeah. That's great. So kind of transitioning to, let's say I wanted a pair of customized shoes. Do you want to explain that, the process behind it? Do you like, meet with them or, chat with them for 15 minutes to discuss like exactly how they want the shoe to be done?
Yeah, sure. So usually people that reach out to me, uh, it's kind of funny because most times you just get a DM that says "yo" or "sup," and that's it, and there's nothing there,
Oh, we've
right?
been there,
And
yeah, for
then it's
sure.
like because and what I've grown to know is that a lot of people don't answer messages on Instagram.
Yeah.
So
So I
true.
just like, and so they don't want to waste the time of sending this long message about what they want if
Hmm.
it's just going to go on deaf ears. So at first I was like, I was like like not annoyed, but just like, can't you just tell me what you want in that first one so we don't have to go back and forth a couple of times?
Right.
But then I understand why people are doing it, and so I'll send the wave back so that they know that I'm there, and then that starts the conversation. And then usually, what they'll do is they'll either send me something that they like, that I've done or that maybe somebody else has done. And like I said before, I don't like. I'm not going to replicate anybody's design. I usually will say, "Have you reached out to this artist, for them to do this
Hmm.
for you?" Because if not, I can do one in my style,
Right.
and then usually what happens after that is they'll say, "Hey, I want a Superman," and then I'm like, "Okay, is there anything that you want me?" The next question that I ask is there anything you want me to consider in designing this? Because the one thing that it's kind of this tightrope that I walk, or what it's like this yin and yang, where I feel like I'm a shoe or a sneaker artist and not a sneaker customizer. Because like a customizer, I don't want to. I don't want to sound snobbish, but I don't want to get into painting people's names and their jersey numbers and things like
Right.
that, because I just don't feel like that falls into the artwork I want to create.
Hmm.
I don't feel. It's not that I feel like, oh, this is not cool, so don't do this. It's great, but it's just not that. It's not what falls into what I want to do. So I always try to phrase it that way. Like, is there something that you want me to consider when I'm designing these? And then if somebody says, "Oh yeah, I love the old comics," or "I love this," or "I love that style," but a lot of times, a lot of people come to me because they like how wacky some of my shoes are, or how out there some of them are. They're like, "Nah, just do what you do." And then I work on a computer to show them the whole shoe, mostly the whole shoe. Sometimes I don't like to show them what I'm going to do on the tongue tags, or the rear, the heel tags, because I'm kind of, I don't say want to say known, but I like to try to do. I've done portraits on the toe tongue tags and things like that,
Hmm.
it, that are a little more intricate than you normally see, and I want that to be a surprise for them. So I don't want to give them the whole design and then they know exactly what they're going to get. But I give them a real good idea through the computer, and then that's what they'll sign off for, and then I go from there. Then the next time they see it is the finished piece, and so far so good. Everybody has liked what I've done for them. So
Oh yeah, I mean we've been checking out your page, and I couldn't
I mean,
imagine
it's
anyone having
amazing.
any issues with any of your artwork for sure. Like it's, I mean, we he Chase showed it to me first, and I was just blown away because I'm personally just, a massive sneakerhead. I've got a ton of shoes. So whenever I first saw this page, I was like, wow, it's the one thing I haven't done. So definitely going to be keeping it in mind to get to get a sneaker customized, hopefully in the near future. But,
well, that's cool. That's
go
cool.
ahead.
I appreciate your kind words too. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
But that pretty much wraps up our interview for today. The last thing we have is do you have any small tips or tricks for people that are just starting out before we sign off here?
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm really glad you asked that. And there's two reasons why. All right. One is I'm happy to help anybody that is just getting started, or even is you know is doing something and is like, how do I get to the next level? Because I've been there. When I started in sports art, I mean, even if you go scrolling to the bottom of my page and then halfway up on Instagram, you'll see how I got better.
Hmm.
And there's two guys. I got um, Monty Sheldon and Greg Kreendler, who were two excellent sports artists. And I mean, they were so generous over the years. Where if I asked a question about, hey, how do you get what colors are you using? I was like, can you send me high res scans of your work? And they would. Monty even actually painted something for me once.
Wow.
So and so these are like guys who I thought were elite and I could learn from, and they were very generous. Same thing with Tragic. His name is Terrell on Instagram. I don't know if you know he's a customizer, but I reached out to him because I did what do you call it? A Toy Story design. It was like my second or third. I think it was like third shoe that I did, and it was similar to something that he did, and somebody pointed that out. So I reached out to him because I was like, "Yo, I didn't know of your shoe, but this is kind of similar what we did. I just wanted to see how he felt about it." And he was like, I mean, we were on the phone 2 days later, just talking about the business, how to get started, and he's been so supportive, um, with my art. And there's another guy, O. Worthen. He's another super supportive guy that most times before I show a client a layout, I'll send it to these guys and be like, "What do you think?" And there's been times where they're like, "I think something's missing," and there's other times where they're like, just they'll send a few flames back, and I know I'm good to go. So
I like it.
anybody, yeah, anybody that's doing this that's starting out or is trying to get better or whatever, I'm always going to answer. I just had somebody the other day who reached out to me, and this actually reminded me that I have to respond because I said I need some time. They wanted to know every color that was in my SpongeBob kicks,
Oh
and
man.
so yeah, and I'm like, dude, there's like 42 color combinations in
Oh
there,
wow.
but I'll gladly send it to them.
Oh,
I've
that's
actually,
amazing.
yeah, I sent it to two other people who have. There's like three or four people who have reached out to me and have reproduced my SpongeBob Air Force Ones, and that's really cool to see it.
Yeah.
And to see that it moved other people to create something. So
Mm.
that's great.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, if you guys didn't hear that, feel free to, shoot him a DM on Instagram, ask him any questions. He's willing to answer and work with you guys. But I think
Yeah,
that's gonna wrap it up for the podcast. Paul or Kixar Customs, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate you,
Hundred
telling your
percent.
story and giving us a fresh perspective on, or Paul's perspective, I should say, on, customizing shoes. It's been a pleasure.
It's been an honor for sure.
yeah. Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no problem. All right. And that's going to wrap it up for the podcast, guys. If you want to have any more information on Shoecast or anything in regards, follow us down in our socials below. And that is Shoecast. And we're out.
Peace, guys.
All right.